All right, welcome to Smash Hit Sports. Nick out here drinking Fresca. It's look,
Not
we had
now.
not bad, not bad.
Yeah.
Speaking of things that were absolutely not bad, we had the greatest tandem, not greatest individual games, but we had the greatest tandem of college football playoff semifinal games in the history of the playoff.
Yo,
It
100%.
was absolutely outstanding. Both of these games were nothing short of phenomenal. I mean, they were the Rose Bowl was everything that my childhood loved in college football. The defense, smash mouth, every yard in that game was earned. There was a little bit of chaos, and it was beautiful. I loved every minute of it. And then the Sugar Bowl was conversely just it was offensive bliss. These teams were they were throwing darts, they were converting, like it was outstanding. And just when we thought, like I thought Texas was dead,
Yeah.
dead, and they came as close as you could be to being back.
It was crazy. The end of that game was nuts. And it was so
was
late. It was like
absolutely
12:45.
Dude, okay. All right. First off, before we get into it, hit the like and subscribe button. It's the best way to help the show. All of our content is completely free. So if you want to help us out, hit that like and subscribe. That being said, let's get into it. I have two fucking bitch fits that I want to throw at college football. All right. Number one, an 8:45 kickoff is too fucking late for our East Coast ass. All right. That's insane.
It didn't
8:30
even kick off at 8:45.
at the earliest.
It kicked off at like 9:30.
Number two bitch fit. When you say kickoff is 8:45, that ball better be fucking kicked at 8:45. I am so sick and tired of kickoff for the 5 o'clock kickoff. That kicked off at 5:14. And then you're like, oh, well, the first game ran into the second game. Yeah, because they didn't fucking kick the first game off on time.
Yeah.
God damn it. They kicked that. It was after 9 o'clock by the time that ball was kicked. That's insane.
And Cody, this is my thing, is that I was thinking, why on earth are we doing the California-based Rose Bowl game at 5 and then the Sugar Bowl at 8? I
do understand that. The reason that they did that was because of the Rose Bowl got the first pick of the games. They picked those games, Michigan and Alabama. Both of those are East Coast time zone for the most part. So that is why they had the early kick. That being said,
the sun
going down at the Rose Bowl. That's chef's kiss.
It was chef's kiss, and that game was perfect. Every part of it was perfect. But I'm pretty sure in the past we normally had like a 4 o'clock kickoff for whatever the first game is, because I don't know if it's ever been the Rose Bowl game. Like I feel like it's normally like when I saw 5 o'clock kickoff, I had to like double take, because I was like home and ready on my couch at 4, because just subconsciously I was like, it's probably going to kick off at like 4:15. It was a whole hour later, and I think that's because they didn't want to play the game at like 1 p.m. and have teams warming up at like 11 a.m. like they, because it's California. So that crossed my mind, because I was kind of just like upset as you were when I was, it's 12 o'clock, and I was thinking like, should I turn this off? Washington's up 2 scores, and I'm exhausted. But obviously, as ball lovers as we are, we did not turn it off. Of course, I didn't turn it off. But I was like, God damn it, this game should be over by now.
Yeah. And then having to go back to work today for the first time in like a week and a half. God damn it, dude. It was awful.
It's like we didn't have time to like comprehend and process our thoughts about it, because it was like, all right, the game's over. Like I want to like scroll through Twitter. I want to like interact. I want to be like, oh my God, because it was incredible. I mean, I'm easily the best semifinal duo we've ever had. Has there ever even been a season where it's been like 2 close games? I don't think so, right? Normally
I don't know.
1 blowout.
I don't know if there has. Definitely not this close. The other thing too, like college football, people would be like, oh, we need to grow the game. How the fuck are you supposed to grow the game when the game is on past all these kids' bedtimes and my bedtime? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sure there are a bunch of grown ass adults who went to bed at halftime, because damn it, 11 o'clock at halftime's too fucking late. Like People have jobs. People want to like, they would never do this with a Super Bowl. What are we doing? Come on.
Yeah. And even with the Super Bowl kicking off at 6:30, people are still screaming for the next day off, right? They're like, this
Yeah.
is asinine that we have to go to work the next day, or like back in when we went to school,
Yeah.
it was like, oh my God. But I mean, we used to not really have this problem because the games were on New Year's Eve. And I remember going into this year, I was kind of excited they weren't on New Year's Eve because as great as that Ohio State moment was last year, it's too chaotic almost. Like you're at a pregame, you're doing what, like, it's like, I want to just be, it's only football. That's what I want.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a double-edged sword because then it's like, okay, this is amazing football, but now I'm, way. I mean, I was going to be up regardless, but like I did not have the opportunity to like really inject what I just saw into my own brain the way I wanted to. So, but that's what we're going to be doing today. And I bet a lot of you guys that are listening are saying to yourselves, yeah, I didn't really get that opportunity either. Let's talk about it. So we're going to talk about it. And let's start with Michigan, Alabama.
Yeah. Michigan finally getting over the hump. This was, as much as like people want to say Alabama lost the game, and we'll talk about that fourth down play call, Michigan won this football game. In the fourth quarter, they needed a score down 7, and they conjured up a drive where Roman Wilson, who had been not phenomenal up to that point in the game,
he also was just flagged for that block in the back on that play.
Yep. So he wasn't outstanding, and he redeemed himself. Made some phenomenal plays. JJ McCarthy, I will be the first person to admit that I am a JJ McCarthy hater. He is a game manager extreme. That being said, he managed this game perfectly. That last drive was exquisite. They did exactly what they needed to in overtime. They scored on 2 plays. It was a like Michigan, Sharon Moore, hats off. The adjustments that Michigan's offense made in the second half of that game were phenomenal. Like
in the second half of the second half, I would say.
Okay.
Right.
Fair.
But for a little bit there, it was like, what is JJ doing? What is this offense doing? And then they readjusted, and it was like, oh my God, it's like a light just flipped. And I completely agree. JJ was looking great. The run game that was getting stifled for a little started to find its ground again. I know that, so Alabama was minus 650 live at one point. But to me, and I was watching with some people, and we were all saying it at 0 point in that game did we think we knew who was going to win. Like, even when Alabama was up 2013, people who had Alabama, people who had Michigan, we were both kind of like, I don't know. Anything could happen. When Michigan was up, it was like, I don't know. And so when I saw that, I mean, I was like kind of surprised. And obviously I took it and it was awesome. But like, it definitely, this was like, that was my favorite game. I think it was literally a perfect football game. I was just smiling ear to ear at the end there as the sun set in Pasadena. We'll get to Washington, Texas in a little, but I do think there was more of that feeling of like, okay, it looks like Washington's the better team. It looks blah, blah, blah.
And this game had just enough chaos too. Like, whatever the fuck Michigan did on that last punt return to like get the ball at the 1.
Oh my God.
Like, they about lost it there. You know what I mean? And then,
I know, like that, and especially when JJ McCarthy's kneeling with like 12 seconds left from the inch-yard line, like the ball.
Yeah, he had to like go
down
forward.
And he didn't. Like, it was as short, as close to being like a game-losing safety as I've ever seen, which is like the type of thing that shouldn't get you out of your seat, like a punt to basically say we're going to play for overtime.
Yeah.
And you're like out of your seat, like, oh my God, freaking out. Obviously Michigan muffed the punt earlier. There weren't like any asterisks though, of some games.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's a terrible flag here. There was a bonehead thing here. It really just felt like a normal, like two great teams that had a couple minor mistakes here and there. And it just played out and went into overtime. Maybe that play call at the end was like the biggest mistake of the game. But we'll talk about that in a sec.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it now. That play call, fourth down from the 3, right? A lot of people are giving Tommy Rees shit for calling what was essentially what looked like Jalen Milroe just diving into the fucking offensive line and hoping that he got it. Here is the issue that that happened with that play. You saw the running back come in motion, right? And then they motioned into a not a true like running back wheel pattern, but the running back went out in essentially the flat behind two wide receivers on the left side. In an ideal world, that play was an RPO. And essentially, the pass option was the running back swinging out into the flat with two wide receivers blocking two corners. That would have worked. I truly believe that that would have worked. The problem is that center snap was low. It was not a good snap. And this is a center that they had a bad snap earlier in the game. This is the same center that snapped the ball back that caused the 4th and 31 to begin with against Auburn, right? So this snapping problem for the center has not been, it's not some sort of like new issue. It's been an issue at several points this season, and it popped up again. Now, should Jalen Milroe probably have still had the fortitude to hit that running back in the flat? Possibly. He shit down his leg. He shit down his leg and dove forward. So I don't have an issue with the play call. I think the play call was fine. The execution was
that was bad.
Dog shit.
Is true. And again, like I said, I didn't have enough time to watch the film, see what went wrong. It was sort of an in the moment, oh my God, they just what is that kind of situation?
And that's what it was so quick. Like he immediately took off. Like he didn't even look to his left. That snap was bad. He went straight forward.
We had Michigan call a timeout, and then they got up to the line, and Alabama called a timeout. So we're all standing up, waiting for this play. It's a 4th and 3 to extend the game in the college football playoff. One of the bigger games or plays of this decade, it seems. And it just happened like that, which is crazy. I will say, Milroe shit down his leg a little bit, but I do think you can even look at Blake Corum when they try to run that flea flicker type thing. Yeah. And you have it it's clear that the Michigan offensive line lost immediately that battle.
Yep.
And you had, I don't think it was Dallas Turner, but you had someone rushing off the edge that Blake Turner was responsible, or Blake Corum was responsible to block. And so he turns around and tries to really quickly pitch it out as the play is designed to. Mm-hmm. And he short arms it, and McCarthy has to fall on it. I think if Milroe had that fortitude you're talking about, there was probably over a 50% chance that whatever arm motion he threw to that running back, it was not going to be how it should be, and the play was going to be a bust regardless, just because of the bad snap or just the execution in general. And that's what it comes down to, one play like that is the difference in being a national champion or not.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's crazy how it's a game of inches. Everybody says it's a game of inches, but it came down to it today. Alabama's offensive line was tough the whole game. Jalen Milroe got obliterated.
Especially in the first half.
A lot. That first half was ugly. Even Saban in the halftime report was just we have to block.
Yeah, he was can we block for the love of God? Yeah. And I saw a clip, while I was watching, I was just on Twitter. I was it was J.C. Latham, who's the right tackle for Alabama, who's a projected first-round pick in this draft.
Yeah.
He had two guys that he was responsible to block, which is already a blown, pass pro system. And he didn't land a hand on either one of them. They both just went around him, and he stood there and turned around and was like, oh, no. And then they both crushed Milroe and, was a drive killer for Alabama.
Yep.
And that, shocked me, where I was like, this is supposed to be an NFL right tackle, a very important position, and just fumbled so hard. And it's not like it was just that one time. He was getting kind of beat off the line a bunch. The guards played okay in run blocking wise, but I feel like there were people just throwing them aside and getting through the middle. Most of the rushes were coming right through that.
Yeah, it was crazy. And Michigan wasn't it's not like Michigan was bringing 6 guys all game long. They were bringing 4. Maybe they'd bring a linebacker or a safety off the edge, but they didn't. It was nothing mind-boggling that they did. They like Alabama's offensive line got beat. They got
They
beat
did.
yesterday. Crazy.
And so because Milroe was under so much pressure, like I don't think Alabama had a big play at all.
No.
Like I really don't, like, even a 20-yard play, I don't even think they had that. And what we talked about last week was like, what are the keys to winning? And one of the things that I said for Michigan was most important is that you just cannot allow them to make any big plays, because Alabama was capable of hitting, Isaiah Bond on a 50-yard go route for a touchdown. That could have happened, but it didn't happen. And I think that was the big difference. My thing is that if Alabama really didn't play that well, it's so crazy to me that they were in that game. You know what I mean? Like, they easily could have won that game, and they didn't have any big plays. They lost the sack battle aggressively. Like, the run game looked okay, but like the wide receivers didn't do much. It kind of just, to me, was like, I'm afraid for Michigan against Washington. That's all I got to say. I'm very afraid.
Georgia fans had to sit there and watch that game and just be like, God fucking damn it, how do we lose to this Alabama team? Like, they should not have. Huh?
They shouldn't have lost, but I was saying, I don't think Alabama was that good this year in comparison to years past, right? Like, you couldn't name a single guy on their D-line. You barely know their running backs, blah, blah, blah. Georgia, I also don't think was as good as people thought they were. Now, granted, they did just win 63-3 against Florida State, but like we said, you can't use the transitive. Every game is its own entity.
Yeah.
And I think everyone in their right mind kind of knew Georgia was going to crush Florida State. Maybe not by 60, but I think what happened was we saw that this was not the best year for the SEC. It just straight up wasn't.
Yeah, and the other thing too, the people who like throughout the year would be like, "This is Nick Saban's best coaching job. This is Nick Saban's best coaching job." I fucking and this is it's not just for Nick Saban. This goes for anyone when a coach who they may or may not have the same roster that they've had in the past. Like Mike Tomlin gets this a lot. This might be Mike Tomlin's best coaching job. I think probably when he won his Super Bowls was his best fucking coaching job. Nick Saban's best coaching jobs? Probably when he won the fucking national championship. Why do we sit here and say that in a coach's down year when did Alabama exceed expectations this year? No, their win total was 11 games. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. Like, nobody, I don't understand why people sit here and they go, that this is his best coaching job. No, it wasn't. It wasn't even close to his best coaching job. His best coaching jobs are when he wins national titles.
Yeah, which I completely agree with that. I would say, off the top of my head, 2015, when you have Jalen Hurts as a 17-year-old freshman quarterback who turns 18 during the season, and you go to the national championship with a roster that many people were saying was the worst Alabama roster in a long time, and you go out and you win the national championship. Yeah, that's probably the best coaching job he's ever had. This year, I mean, Saban has won in the semifinals like 6 times. So this year he didn't even win in the semifinals. You can't say it's his best coaching job. But I do think that he was fantastic this year as far as noticeable things throughout the season that needed fixing and that were fixed, that like players that needed development that were developed throughout the season. Like, you can point at more things than you could in like 2017 when they won it all, because they're just so stacked. This year they weren't as stacked. They had to be coached to get to this level. But the thing is, they weren't at a good enough level. And I mean, is that Saban's fault? Some of it, yes, because they didn't win it all. And they didn't execute on that last play, and that's kind of a coaching issue, right? So, yeah, you can't say it's his best, but I do want to tip my cap to how good they got throughout the season. Even the fact that they were in the playoff, to me, was a testament of Saban's prowess.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, don't get me wrong. He's a phenomenal coach and did a phenomenal job. However, like, this guy, he won a national title with fucking Greg McElroy and AJ McCarron. Like, this is not his best coaching job.
2011. That's another great. That might be his best.
So he won Mac Jones. Shit. That being said,
Asterisk.
I put the vibes were off on this team. Did you see like Dallas Turner's statement after the game?
Mm-mm.
That
No.
immediately before Michigan and Washington had kicked off, Dallas Turner declared for the NFL draft. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I'm gone. That's the official statement. The fuck, dude? You couldn't wait like an hour? You couldn't wait till tomorrow? Like, you know what I mean? Like that dude had his locker cleaned out before before the reporters came in, which is crazy. And then Jermaine Burton, that was like his emotional and then what's on your mind, heading into this game? Murder. 4 catches for like 24 yards. What are you?
Well,
Come
yeah,
on, dude.
yeah.
Like we gotta. This team was really weird. This was a weird ass Alabama team. Like,
yeah,
a lot of guys were
and when you
frustrated
look
at the
at
end.
Michigan,
Yeah.
when you look at Michigan, who is like, it seems like a very connected unit,
Yes.
right? Like they're
Yeah.
all, close, tight knit, like band together, arm in arm football team. I will agree that you didn't get that vibe from Alabama.
Yep.
Like you just if you told me that like two of the receivers like didn't even they didn't like know each other that well, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It just kind of, they had that vibe to them, which is maybe another reason subconsciously that I just didn't think they were the same as old Alabama teams, and why I didn't have them winning at all, because I know a lot of people just based off name value were like,
Oh, I did.
if Alabama's in the playoff and if an SEC team's in the playoff, they're going to win. And I'm like, well, I don't want to judge you for that, but like it seems like you're doing that because of the name rather than the fact that you've been watching ball all year, because it's pretty clear that Alabama wasn't Alabama.
Yep. I fell into that trap. But let's talk about the game I was right on, because I love talking about being right.
Yeah, and I was wrong here.
Washington.
We were both kind of right, but you got the winner.
The game played out how we thought it would. However,
the overhit.
Overhit, like the game played out how we thought it would. It came down to like we both kind of said like whoever had the ball last would win. Turns out not the case.
Yeah, not the case, but almost the case.
Almost the case. The ending of that game, absolutely insane. Dylan Johnson, who has been tremendous for Washington all season, goes down with an injury on the last rush for Washington, causing essentially a stoppage of the clock. And which sucks. It's essentially a timeout, which gave Texas 50 seconds in the punt and trip down the field. Texas was the clunkiest team I have ever seen getting down the field. Like they
did it somehow.
They got a fair catch interference on the punt return, and that got them another like 10, 15 yards. And then it was like shitty play, long completion. Shitty play, completion to the 12. And then from the 12, they were just not like those. They ran a pass to the flat that was why the fuck? Why? And then
no, it was like a pump fake to the flat, and then like that look away is going to just totally make the flat defenders and the weak side linebacker just sprint the other way and then pass back to the flat, and he lost a yard. It was insane.
Yeah,
I was shocked.
That was terrible. And then they just ran like 2 fade plays to Adonai Mitchell. And what do we?
Which, if you look at the slow-mo on that 4th down play, which, again, crazy. It was 4th down with 1 second left to win the game. So amazing that we had, like, 2 of those. But you look at it, if the Washington cornerback, who I don't remember his name, but his vertical must have been, like, 45 inches, because
the play he made to deflect that ball.
That ball was going to land perfectly in Adonai Mitchell's hands as he was, like, toe-tapping. It was going to be like Santonio Holmes in 08.
Yep.
Brilliant. But the Washington defender is towering over him, like 4 feet in the air, and spikes that shit out of there. I mean, that was play of the game. Unbelievable athletic ability to just say, like we're going to the national championship game.
Yeah, that was awesome. Both offenses played really well. Like there was a point where like I think some people, at least on Twitter, were like, "What about Arch Manning? Quinn Ewers played great." Like Quinn Ewers played a great football game. Like he didn't have a lot of touchdowns, but like that's just because they ran when they got close. I
think it's hard because Michael Penix played maybe the best quarterback game of the year. When you're comparing Quinn Ewers to that, you're like, maybe Quinn Ewers doesn't look all that great. But like, if Quinn Ewers was playing any other team, you'd be like, yeah, he's having a really great game. But you're comparing him to this god tier level performance that we saw from Penix.
He was throwing ropes, dude. It was unbelievable. Every ball. And the thing about Michael Penix too is like some of those plays, like they were not, it wasn't arm strength. It wasn't the fact that he could throw the ball 100 yards. It was like the back shoulder fade to Rome Odunze. Like just perfect in the perfect spot with the perfect angle. Like everything about it was incredible. The touch passes into the flat where it like gave the receiver enough separation. He threw them open. Like it was unbelievable. 29 for 38, 430 yards, 2 touchdowns.
430 yards. That's nuts.
Unbelievable. Against the Texas defense. That was
it's
great.
No like cakewalk. I mean, we knew there were going to be points, but 430 yards on 29 completions is nuts. At the beginning of that game, or at least early on, he had that like 55-yard bomb that I think it was to Odunze, and I don't think.
And he got tackled at like the 3. Yeah.
I don't even think he had to look up. I think he could have just kept running, and it would have landed perfectly
in his hands,
right on his like arm into his chest, and he would have been like, "Oh, ball," and he would have kept going. Like it was nuts for a deep ball like that as you're getting blitzed to be into like almost double coverage. Like it was just insane. Like you said, some of the fade balls, some of these out routes that like the corner strike that needed to be just over the defender's hands into a pocket, and they always were perfect. Like I don't think he had any bad passes. He had 9 incompletions. I don't think he really had any bad passes. Maybe like one.
He had 1 or 2 that were like a hair off, but you're like, eh. You know what I mean? It wasn't bad like, oh, fuck, that could have been picked bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's just like he kind of missed him a little bit.
His expected interception was probably like 0.00.
Yeah.
0. Like it was nuts.
This game was absolutely outstanding. Kalen DeBoer, like, are we going to have the conversation that like he's one of the 5 best coaches in college football?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it. I feel like we have to give credit to the entire staff.
Fair.
Right? Just because like DeBoer did a fantastic job all year, but you're looking at schematically the execution of everything. Like the quarterback's coach did a fantastic job. The offensive coordinator in general,
Ryan Grubb. Yeah, he's
like
great.
These motion plays, these like doing the unexpected in the perfect way. You even got to go back to that Washington State game where on 4th down from their own 29, they ran that like fake reverse to Odunze, kind of like Statue of Liberty play that went for 30 yards. That is like one of the gutsiest calls I've ever seen. Like that is just a whole coaching staff good shit for even practicing that.
They had a fucking ballsy call in this play where they went for it on 4th and short at their own like 35.
Yeah,
like
and
that
they
was
got
a
it with
ballsy ass call.
But yeah.
Dude, it's the cohesiveness, everything across the board, absolutely insane. They deserve a ton.
They looked like the best team in college football, and some people are saying like, oh, well, why weren't they one over Michigan? Which like I remember we kind of touched on like, why is no one talking about how Michigan was just locked into being number 1 when the resume wise, Washington had this great resume. I do think that they had their moments of lethargy and apathy in the season where they slept walk here and they looked sloppy here. And there were moments where it was like, is this team national championship caliber? But what we just saw against Texas is like, I mean, I would be shocked. I think I'm willing to say that like I think they win. I think they win easy. I do.
Yep.
And they looked that good.
Yeah, it is insane.
And of course, they could have lost, which is like hats off to Texas. That's why this playoff. And I'll also say, Cody, I was upset that Florida State didn't make it in, and I stand by my logic there that like having an amendment that if you go undefeated in a Power 5 conference, there's a little amendment in the rule book that's like you're guaranteed it. But like shout the hell out to the committee because they nailed it. That was that's perfect. They nailed it so hard.
They nailed it.
Like I am now looking at Florida State and saying, I don't feel bad for you at all because who would have wanted to see that?
Yeah,
no one. Like as much as the logic in my brain is like, oh, they got fucked so hard. They had like I don't care if they lose by 50. They had to make it. No,
Yeah.
no. In this exact scenario, under these circumstances, they nailed it.
Yep. It was absolutely insane. Speaking of nailing it, the Pick'em update. The Pick'em update. So first off, congratulations to the top three. Roll on you Bears 12, 31 and 11, 99.9% percentile. Congratulations on the win. That's insane.
That is impressive.
That's super impressive
as hell. Like, do we know who that is?
I don't.
Has he reached out?
I don't. I haven't put it up on Instagram yet, but as soon as I put it up on Instagram, hopefully they reach out. But I've only put it up on Twitter.
I want to virtually shake his hand for that because that's great. 31 and 11.
I'll make a graphic for him because that's awesome. Jonas K. Staples and EL and then a bunch of numbers both went 29 and 13. Phenomenal.
Which is also fantastic, right?
Yeah. So those are our top three. They will be taking home the prize of the shotgunning tool.
And who's in fourth? Who got fourth?
Oh, crazy! Who is that?
Who is that?
Oh shit! It's me. That's
Cody.
Crazy.
99th percentile.
99th percentile. 28 and 14. Turns out I fucking know ball, and that feels good. That feels good.
It does. And we talked a lot of game. We were saying, hey, if you can go out and beat both of us, I bet you can. I bet you can because we know ball. And I mean, shout out to these top three because they did, and you're going to get a prize for that. But I'm glad that you went crazy. 28 and 14.
Yeah.
That's 70 or whatever, 75% hit rate.
Yep.
No, 66, whatever it is. I don't know the math. I think it's 66%. But that's fantastic considering these are all we're picking the winner, and like you say, the best gamblers are 55%. You crushed that.
We picked them prior to any bowl starting. Didn't know a lot of the opt-outs.
Yeah.
So
we knew nothing, and you went 28 and 14, which is great. For a little bit there, I was actually looking not great. I was 12 and 15. I think the last time we recorded, I was 12 and 15.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna need a miracle. And after that, I went 12 and 3 in my last 15 games.
Well,
that's pretty damn good.
You even said too, you're like, hey, look, we struggled early because we didn't have a lot of confidence in some of those games, a little obscure teams. Maybe not all of us watched USF this year, right? And we had some balls that didn't bounce our way. Old Dominion, what the fuck was that? But
tons of balls that didn't bounce our way.
But that being said, you called it. You said, hey, when the going gets tough and the games matter, New Year's 6, he's like, you were all over it. So
I was all over it. And I mean, some of the games yesterday, they weren't that hard. Tennessee, Iowa, I would have put my life fucking savings.
Oregon,
Iowa wouldn't get
kind of a lock.
Yeah, Oregon was a lock. LSU actually barely snuck by with Johnson,
that was a great game. That was a great game.
But it's like you're saying that we watched all these Power 5 teams that were ranked in and out throughout the season, and we finally get to the moment where it's okay, we have to pick one over. So many people picked Auburn over Maryland, which you might be included.
I did.
So no shot fired to you. But that was so easy to me because Auburn stinks so much. You know what I mean? People are probably oh, Auburn, SEC, Auburn, they've won championships in my lifetime. I'm picking Auburn. Auburn was so bad, man. And Maryland beat them easily because obviously I was able to watch them both. Now, I was higher on Maryland than you were all year, so there was a little bit of that in there as well. But games like that where, we watched both teams, 12 and 3 in those games, pretty much, right? So that's pretty damn good.
The ball knowledge came out. We love it.
What, 84th percentile at 24 and 18?
Yeah, fuck yeah. I mean,
I'll take it.
Pretty damn good.
We'll take it.
So our records headed into the national title game. You're sitting at 127 and 86 on your picks for the year. I am sitting at 135 and 78. Honestly, that's pretty damn good for picking games that are pretty much 50-50 for the most part. So
there are probably throughout the season, what is this? We've done quick math, 213 picks. Yeah. And I would say maybe 20 of them were kind of freebies.
Yeah.
We would throw in a game just because there weren't enough on where we were
or week
this is out
0
8, but
or week
we're
1. Yeah.
throwing it in. And so that means there's pretty much 200 games that were relative. You could argue either way, 100%. And sometimes we went the opposite side of the public, and we got
Yep.
it right. Sometimes we got it wrong, but
I mean, fuck, you
we
picked
did
South
well.
Alabama over Oklahoma State, so.
I did. I mean, yeah, and they crushed Oklahoma State. And then, of course, it turns around, and I pick Oklahoma over Oklahoma State, and you pick Oklahoma State over Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State wins because that's like the weirdest team of all time.
Yep.
But yeah, those records are really good. I will congratulate you because that is official that you have won. But the good news for me is that we are starting
college
fresh.
hoops. We're back.
We are starting fresh with college basketball. Shall we get into it right now?
Do we want to do the national championship preview first, or do we want to do college hoops?
Let's preview the national championship.
Let's save college hoops for the end. All right, national championship preview. Let's set the stage here. Number 1 team in the country, Michigan, against the number 2 team in the country, Washington, in Houston on Monday night. Michigan is a 4.5-point favorite in this game. Washington plus 154 to the money line. The total for this game is at 55.5, which is essentially kind of split between the Michigan-Bama game and the Washington-Texas game. Dylan Johnson's injury. As far as an update, essentially Kalen DeBoer said it's an extension of the injury he's been dealing with. I think it's like a foot ankle deal. It's not like whether or not like he can or can't play. It's going to be a pain tolerance thing. So we'll see if Johnson's likely to suit up. He has been their bell cow all year, so hopefully he does.
And it sucks because last year we saw Kendre Miller get hurt against Michigan, and I don't think he ended up playing against Georgia. I don't think it would have mattered, considering TCU lost by 78 million points. But I do kind of hate to see that. But this is my other thing, is that he had 21 carries for 49 yards. Like that, Washington didn't win that game because of Dylan Johnson.
Yeah.
Washington won that game because Michael Penix had the best game I've seen from a quarterback since Joe Burrow. Yeah. That's why.
So let's, the little keys to victory. I think it's a little more obvious for this game than it was for the last 2 games, right? When we went through the keys to victory and kind of what we expected, this game isn't rocket science. Like, it's not going to be some sort of like, oh, well, how are you going to attack this? And it's pretty straightforward. And sometimes simple's the best. Michigan's, you got to run the fucking football. You got to run the damn ball. Texas, with freshman running backs, ran the ball 28 times for 180 yards and 3 touchdowns. 6.4 yards a carry. You have to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage and run the ball against Washington. I don't see any reason that they shouldn't be able to do that, but like that has to be done. Has to be done.
Yep. As far as the special teams goes for Michigan, this is my thing with Michigan, is that they were not mistake heavy all year. Yeah. They were very, very disciplined and just mature and like just not mistake prone. And we saw a very, critical muffed fumble that let Alabama go up 7-0 early in the game, which kind of just flipped the game on its head. So, if they're going to win, they cannot have that, because this is the thing, is that if they have one or more of those, I think Washington's probably going to capitalize on all of those mistakes, because I trust that offense more than I trust Alabama.
Yeah, and you had that. You had the 2 missed field goals. You had that the weird punt return fiasco at the end of the game that like almost basically gave Alabama the safety. Like things like that. Like that, Washington's going to put up points. Like I understand that this Michigan defense is really fucking good, but I still think Washington's going to get theirs. The other thing too, Michigan runs a lot of single high safety looks. So
they do.
Whereas Texas ran that 2 deep safety, like kind of like that match quarters coverage with 2 deep safeties. Michael Penix was able to push those safeties deep and then get the ball in the deep middle of the field. That's what you saw with Roma Dunze's large plays. And then they were able to kind of beat them on those outside fade routes. Michigan needs to disguise their coverage, whether it's man, whether it's zone, because that is going to be how you play those different defenses is drastically different, right? Or like how you battle those defenses. Um, Washington, I expect them to try to attack those safeties and those outside corners and make them make plays and be great. But if you can disguise what you're doing, that's going to help. That's going to make your guys not be on an island, right? Because nobody one on one has been able to defend Washington all year. Like it just is
No.
what it is. So
yeah, they're gonna have to do something. I will say so with Texas, they were missing. We talked about it, right? They were missing some
safety,
safeties,
yep,
and we noticed it immediately that Washington was attacking that as a weakness and kind of chucking the ball downfield early. Rod Moore, who is kind of the prototype for that single high safety for Michigan, is a dog. He's
yeah,
beast. He played a fantastic game against Alabama. I think that's a different scenario, and I don't know if we're going to see Washington, considering how well coached they are. They're going to watch the film. I don't know if they're going to try to exploit that as much, or if they do try, how much success they're going to find. So it's interesting. I can't say confidently what I expect because we've seen Washington games where they aren't really chucking. We've seen
yeah,
them win with out routes and methodical drives, and we might see a game that leans more towards that. My thing is that if Michigan, like when Michigan struggled against Alabama and they had to punt it away, which
mm,
was mostly in the third quarter, Alabama dominated that third quarter, right? Alabama still only put up 10 points when Michigan was getting 3-and-out after 3-and-out after 3-and-out, doing nothing with the ball. Alabama would get the ball back and they'd punt it back or,
mm,
go one first down and then nothing, get sacked here. I don't think Washington is going to struggle as much as Alabama did on the offensive side of the ball. So I really don't think Michigan has that luxury of getting in that sluggy, period of a game. Like they just can't. I don't think they're going to be able to do that. So it's interesting. Can we trust Michigan to just be full throttle all four quarters? I
yeah.
don't know.
The other thing on that too is if Michigan gets a lead, like Washington, I truly don't think Washington will ever be out of this game. Like even if they have if it's a 10-point game, 4 minutes left, I'm not. I ain't gonna count out Michael Penix. So
Absolutely not. We saw the Washington Oregon game
yeah,
twice. It was basically that. It was like, oh, this team's losing by 7 or 10 or whatever. It's not over, and it really never was. So I agree with that. But I do think that if Michigan was down 10, like they were against Alabama, or they were down 7, but like if they were down, I have a lot less faith.
yep, yeah. It'll be. I'm interested to see how Washington what they do defensively. Washington runs a 4-2-5, right? So they have 5 defensive backs, 2 linebackers. Fun fact, that's not typical Big Ten football, right? Big Ten football, you're putting there's a lot of teams you're putting 8 men in the box for. I'll be interested to see if they adjust in that 4-2-5, if they still kind of go in the same personnel groupings. We talked
That is
about
interesting, yeah.
because we talked about Michigan running a lot of 12 personnel last week. Guess what? They're gonna fucking do that again. And if they
And
run
you're going to need linebackers to cover their
yeah,
tight ends.
those tight ends are good. They're talented. Loveland's he's a dog. So I'm interested to see how Washington defends that, how they try to stop the run. Like I understand, it's oh yeah, it's simple, just stop the run. But that's not fun fact. Washington's defensive line isn't going to gain 30 pounds between now and Monday. So they're going to have to find different ways than just being bigger, faster, and stronger, which is what Alabama tried to do, but they weren't successful because, God damn it, Michigan is probably the biggest, fastest, and strongest team in the country.
It is definitely, that's fascinating. I had yet to think about how, you look at Michigan's wide receiver core and you say there is absolutely no need to have 5 defensive
Yeah.
backs against them. There's just no need, especially against a team that runs the ball 65% of the time,
Yep.
So, and like you said earlier, JJ McCarthy did well as,
Yeah.
a game manager of sorts, but he didn't move the needle as far as making you he didn't blow your mind or anything.
Yeah.
And if you have 5 defensive backs, sure, you can just completely take out the pass game for Michigan, but we've seen them win games running the ball only.
Look at what they did to Penn State. The thing with
and they're going to be able to do that.
And I don't want this to be like a dig to JJ McCarthy. They're not asking him to do any more than that. Like JJ McCarthy is a really good college quarterback. The thing with like, if you are like, it's very like Washington, you have to stop Michael Penix. You have to stop Michael Penix. That is like what you need to do in order to win the game. For Michigan, you have to stop the run, right? That's not.
Yeah, it's just two sides of a coin.
Yeah, they are not going to beat you on JJ McCarthy alone. It's just not how their team's built, right? Not that he can't. I mean, he showed exactly what he did on that last drive against Alabama. But yeah, we'll see. I'm excited. So the other thing with Washington is with Dylan Johnson possibly being banged up. We'll see if he's able to go. And even if look at the Texas game, right? He only had 49 yards. He still had the 2 touchdowns, but like 49 yards isn't outstanding. They have to find some sort of alternative to the run game, because as good as Texas's front 4 is, Michigan's front 7 is just as good, if not better. So they're going to have to find some sort of, short run game. Now, whether I expect them to try to attack the game outside of the hashes, try to do some bubble screens, outs, like get the ball into the flat. I expect them to push the boundary in this game. But we'll see, because there is no, I don't know what the fucking solution to beat this Michigan defense is, because we haven't seen it yet. Nobody's done
Right.
it.
But my thing is literally, other than Quinn Ewers, other than Jalen Milroe, Michigan has played 0 quarterbacks this year that are like wow, you know what I mean? And you could argue 0 wide receiver cores beside. I mean, I don't know. This is such a great matchup, because it's like, is Michigan really, really that dominant, or have they just been playing like Drew Aller was like, and Kyle McCord? Those are the guys that they were afraid of. Jalen Milroe, who got so much better throughout the season, but Milroe was never the level of Mike Penix. He just never was, and we saw that.
That's 2 totally different quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like,
it is.
It's crazy.
Yeah, Penix is straight up like a pocket passer at this point. And so I think they are going to need to, have some. I expect like trickeration of sorts, where maybe you even have like wide receivers line up in the backfield, kind of like do something like San Francisco does, where you have these RPO options or middle screens, right, with a leak out wide receiver, stuff where it's an extension of the run, but it's not your Greg Roman bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, it's going to be a bubble screen,
as he says, with the fucking Ravens hat on.
Yes, as a former Greg Roman hater, I understand too well how to not try to get an extension of the run. So I'm expecting some crazy creativity. Who's the defensive end on Michigan who had like the game of his life yesterday that I hadn't heard of? So I don't know his name.
I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah, well, regardless, he played like a man possessed, and like you were saying, Washington's offensive line, they have Thais Fulaga. He's a hoss.
Yeah, he was outstanding against Texas. I don't think he gave up a single pressure.
He's like 6'7", 350. But on the interior, I don't see how Washington's really going to be able to run. I really don't. So just need to get creative on pass protection and creative with getting some short, quick throws off, so that you can open up these long plays, because Michigan's that they're going to be game planning for that more than anything.
All right, so you want to give your prediction first, or you want me to go? I'll let you pick.
I'll go. I alluded to it a little bit earlier, but I love Washington. I love it. Love them.
Ooh.
And my reasoning, I'll say it again, is that I didn't think Alabama was great, and Michigan still needed overtime, and like late fourth quarter drives to tie it up, needed a bad execution on a 4th down in overtime to win that game. against a team that I wasn't sold on. I was sold on Washington and Texas, and until the very end, when Washington should have won that game, if not for the Dylan Johnson injury, it would have been 100% out of the question Washington wins. But I really think Washington's better than Alabama, and what I saw from Michigan and like against Alabama, I think Washington is the better team. I'm very surprised that they are plus money, so it makes me like it even more. I'm taking Washington. Maybe like 31-20 I would say.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So looks like once again, Nick, we are on the opposite sides of the coin.
One last time.
As much one last time. As much as I hate the Michigan Wolverines, I cannot stand that dog shit maize and blue. I can't for the life of me figure out how Washington is going to stop Michigan's offense. I just don't. I don't understand how they're going to stop Blake Corum. I think this is going to be. I don't think J.J. McCarthy is going to have to be outstanding. I think the most outstanding player in this game is going to be Blake Corum. I see him going 25 for 150 and 3 touchdowns. I just don't see up front how Michigan just doesn't run over Washington. And I think they're mad that they didn't win the Joe Moore. I think that offensive line's pissed off. I think Harbaugh's pissed off. I think Michigan's pissed off. Michigan against the world. I see a Michigan win 31-27. I think Michigan wins. Washington gets the ball, gets a late comeback, maybe scores late to bring the game close, but can't get an onside kick. And when they'll have to stop Michigan from running for a first down in order to seal the game, and they won't be able to do it. So give me Michigan 31-27 in a close ball game. Either way, like the over at 55.5. This should be an awesome game. Like I truly like, and I don't want to write off Washington at all. I think they absolutely could win it. I think this is going to be such a phenomenal game, and I cannot wait for Monday night.
Yeah. I mean, I can see what you described. I can see it happening. I can see anything happening. That's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of this matchup,
Yep.
Very excited.
Yep. All right. So that being said, hit that like and subscribe. We're going to do some college basketball content. If you're watching on YouTube, that's likely going to be another video. So make sure you go check that out. But